afternoon to everyone, and welcome to the panel discussion for infection prevention and you. I'm thanking everyone to logged in webinar. I'm Mercy, clinical specialist in Polymedicure. I'm representing the Polymedicure team. Infection prevention and you. Yes, you are an important part of infection prevention. As an infection preventionist, we all are playing main role in infection prevention. In 2020, the world's healthcare professionals are working tirelessly to combat the COVID-19 pandemic. During this year's International Infection Prevention Week, Association of Professionals in Infection Prevention Epidemiology wants to celebrate the hardworking infection preventionists who are keeping our community safe. We need to celebrate them by following important infection prevention measures. In this session, we would like to understand from our panel what are all the basic and important measures need to be followed by everyone. And now, I, I would like to introduce our speakers. At first, I am welcoming Kavita Ma'am, Deputy Nursing Officer, Ganga Medical Center, Ganga Medical Center and Hospitals at Coimbatore. I welcome you, ma'am. Ma'am worked at different organizations like Sri Ramakrishna Hospitals, JK College of Nursing, TACT Academy for Clinical Training, Charan College of Nursing, Valikati Mental Health Institute, and Care Hospitals. Ma'am worked in different roles as a charge nurse, lecturer, nurse educator, and deputy nursing officer. Ma'am is also in NABH assessor and national assessor for government hospitals for national quality assurance standards. And ma'am organized and participated in various state level conferences and workshops. Ma'am is also a BLS, ACLS lead instructor. And ma'am trained more than 1,000 candidates for AHA basic life support and advanced cardiac life support since 2008. Kavita ma'am will be the moderator for today's session. Kavita ma'am, I welcome you ma'am.
Thank you, Mercy.
We have three panelists. Our first panelist is Delphine Ma'am. Ma'am is a nursing director from KG Hospital and Postgraduate Medical Institute at Coimbatore. And Ma'am worked in different organizations like Dindigul St. Joseph Hospital, Apollo Hospitals, Triple M Hospital, and Kaveri Hospitals. Ma'am worked in different role as a DNS, infection control key person, and nursing supplement. Ma'am is a lifetime member of National Neonatology Forum. And ma'am organized and participated in various national level and international level conferences and workshops. Ma'am is a certified NABH assessor from CAHO and TUV assessor and certified infection control person also. I welcome you, ma'am. Our next panelist, Muthulakshmi sister. She is an infection control nurse from Kumaran Medical Center, Coimbatore. And sister worked in different organizations like Sri Ramakrishna Hospital and GKNM Hospital, plays a different role as a unit in charge, medical coder, and infection control nurse. And she's a certified infection control nurse. And sister organized and participated various level of state level conferences and workshops. I welcome you, sister.
Thank you, Mercy.
And our last panelist, Ms. Praveena Lu Jaganathan. She's infection control nurse from G. Kuppuswamy Naidu Memorial Hospital, Coimbatore. And sister worked in different organizations like Assisi Hospital, Al-Musa Specialty Hospital from Saudi Arabia, Sri Ramakrishna Hospital, and Good Shepherd Hospital. Sister worked as an emergency nurse and charge nurse in emergency unit and an infection control nurse. She's a certified infection control nurse. Sister organized and participated in state level and conferences. I welcome you, sister.
Hi, Mercy.
Before handing over, we would request you all to use Q&A button on your devices to post any questions for panelists. Again, I'm saying we would request you all to use your Q&A button on your devices to post any questions for the panelists. Now, I'm handing over to Kavita ma'am to take over and conduct the session. Hand over to you, ma'am.
Thank you for your brief and sweet introduction. And very good evening to all, and happy Puja celebration as well. And it is an opportunity for infection control professionals to educate staff and the community about the importance of infection prevention and to promote the important work that has been done by infection control professionals across the world, especially during this pandemic situation. So with this brief intro, I would like to hand over to Ms. Delphin. So Ms. Delphin is a nursing director of KG Hospital who is going to present on the importance of hand hygiene and T-zone awareness. Please, madam.
Thank you, ma'am. PPT. Desktop. Happy afternoon, madam. I just welcome all to the session on hand hygiene. Before we could talk about hand hygiene, let us know what is the truth about and the truth behind hand hygiene when we practice our hand washing procedure during our healthcare setup. We all know well, we forget when needed. We teach of more hand hygiene than what do we practice. When it is not practiced, we blame others rather than self introspection. Is it so necessary to talk about this hand hygiene during this time? Yes, we all know and we agree. Promoting good hand hygiene is one of the most powerful tools to reduce the spread of infection. During this pandemic, it is so right to discuss about hand hygiene. And WHO also states that all member states should urgently provide universal access to public and hand hygiene stations, including at the entrance of every public or private commercial building and in all transport locations, especially major bus stations and train stations, airports, and seaports. What do we know about hand hygiene? We know well hands are the most common vehicle to transmit healthcare associated pathogens. This time we cannot forget father of hand hygiene, Father Ignace. Yes, he has proved that puerperal sepsis could be prevented by simple hand washing in the year 1847 itself. He has proved, and we all know that bugs are in our hands, bugs can be washed off, washing bugs off our hands saves lives. When we think of hand hygiene, we should know that there are two types of microorganisms in the microbial flora in the hands: the resident flora and the transient flora. The resident microorganisms can survive and multiply in the hands, and they are as follows: gram positive cocci like Staphylococci and gram negative bacilli like Klebsiella, gram positive rods, our Corynebacterium diphtheriae. These are found great in numbers under the fingernails and easily could be removed by simple hand washing, but can be inactivated by microbial agents. The transient microorganisms are the common source of our nosocomial or the healthcare associated infection. The transient flora has the following organisms like Staph aureus, Streptococci, Pseudomonas, E. coli, and the viruses. These organisms, they get loosely attached to the epidermis and they are pathogenic and usually acquired, and usually they are spread by direct contact and they are found on the fingertips. They can be easily removed by washing with soap and water and by using a friction. This presentation will take us through the what, who, why, when, and how of hand hygiene. The important points will also be reviewed to improve our good hand hygiene practice. When we say that we want to improve, we have to measure it. How do we measure hand hygiene? Is it possible to measure? Yes, it is possible to measure by hand hygiene auditing tools. Most of the healthcare providers believe they are really doing the appropriate and effective hand hygiene. Can you all just take a guess? What is the hand hygiene compliance in healthcare providers? Can you take a guess? Could you believe that you would be around 95, 10, 40, 60? Can we just go through? If you have guessed 40, you are correct. According to a Canadian study, it is being proved that 40% of the compliance is only being accomplished in the healthcare setup. It is sometimes it is less than 40%. Now let us know what is hand hygiene. It is simple as that. It includes cleaning the hands with soap and water and alcohol-based hand rub. Why? To remove the germs, the microorganisms from the hands. What are all the types of hand washing? The types are all social hand washing, procedural hand washing, surgical hand washing, and also we apply quick hand rub. The social hand washing we use, it takes about 30 seconds we have to do, and it removes transient flora. The agent used is our simple soap. For procedural hand washing, we do it about 60 seconds and it removes the transient as well the resident flora, and we use 7.5% povidone iodine or 4% chlorhexidine. For surgical hand washing, we take about 3 to 5 minutes and it removes transient and resident flora, and the commonest agents used are the 7.5% povidone iodine or 4% chlorhexidine. For alcohol-based hand rub, we do it about 20 to 30 seconds to remove transient and resident flora, and alcohol-based hand rub AHT solutions are used. Who should practice hand hygiene? Is it only for the healthcare workers? Yes, hand hygiene is an important for not only for the healthcare, and it is the need of everyone, and everyone needs to be practicing appropriate and effective hygiene, hand hygiene, regardless of work setting. Where should we perform hand hygiene? Where patient or patient environment contact is taking place. Hand hygiene is important in all work settings, including acute care, long-term care facilities, community, and corporate sites. Providing alcohol-based hand rub at the point of care. This enables healthcare providers to quickly and easily do the 5 moments of WHO hand hygiene. Why do we need to learn about hand hygiene? Is it so necessary? What does it do? It just breaks the chain. It just breaks the chain of infection being supplied from one person to another person. Hand hygiene is the most important way to prevent the spread of germs. Hand hygiene helps keep you healthy by reducing the number of germs on your hands. Using appropriate hand hygiene prevents contamination of the patients as well as the residents' environment. So, when do we do that? The moments of hand hygiene. Before touching a patient, before a clean or an aseptic procedure, after a body fluid exposure or a risk of body fluid exposure, after touching a patient, after touching patient surroundings. These 5 moments are the rules where hand hygiene to be practiced. So this is just a pictorial representation of before contact a patient, before an aseptic procedure, after a body fluid exposure or a risk, after a contact with a patient, and after contact with the patient environment. So just a quick review of 5 moments. This should be kept in our mind while we practice hand hygiene. The 5 moments are before touching a patient, before an aseptic or clean procedures, after body fluid exposure or fluid exposure risk, after touching a patient, after touching patient surrounding. So, how to perform hand hygiene? Is there any standard procedure or technique to do hand hygiene so that the microorganisms are being effectively washed off? Yes, without proper hand hygiene technique, we will also be able to spread many microorganisms. So, when we do our hand hygiene, we have to do certain technique. What to follow? These are the steps being recommended by WHO to do a proper and an effective hand hygiene. Palm to palm, right palm over back of left hand and left palm over back of right hand, palm to palm with fingers interlaced, back of fingers to opposing palms with fingers interlocked, rotational rubbing of right thumb clasped over left palm and left palm over right palm. Rotational rubbing of backwards and forwards with clasped fingers. The clasping of fingers of right hand in the palm of left and the left with the right. This should be done and each step should be done 5 times to keep up the timings. So a simple tip about alcohol-based hand rub. Alcohol-based hand rub is at least 60% ethyl alcohol or ethanol. Ingesting a small amount of ABHR can produce the same side effect as consuming large amount of alcohol and headache. It can give headache, dizziness, drowsiness, incoordination, nausea. And there may be slowed reactions like slurred speech, giddiness, and unconsciousness. Consumption of alcohol-based hand can also result in damage of brain, liver, kidney, the vital organs could also be damaged, and it may also lead to toxic ethanol levels. What about soap and water? Soap and water is recommended when our hands are visibly soiled to wash your hands. Plain soap solution is used for routine hand hygiene, and antimicrobial soap solution is used in an acute care and high risk areas. I think everybody would agree with me. Soap and water, what are all the steps? Is there different steps for soap and water and to use alcohol based hand rub or for surgical hand wash? The steps are the same, the timings only it is differing. For soap and water, you have to have little more prior steps like wet your hands under running water, apply soap and distribute over hands, and you follow the WHO steps of hand hygiene and rinse hands thoroughly under running water, dry hands with a paper towel, and with the paper towel turn off the faucet. Some tips for effective and a good hand hygiene practice. No artificial nails, no extenders. Contaminated surface or object should not be touched after hand wash. It is always better to lift our hands above the hip level after performing hand hygiene. Avoid touching your face, especially your eyes and nose. Fingernails cut short. Nail polish avoided. And to add, do not top up a partially used hand hygiene product dispenser. If reusable dispensers are used, they must be emptied, washed, dried prior to being refilled. Hand lotion bottles must never be reused. Include frequently missed areas when performing hand hygiene like thumbs, palms, web spaces, undernails, and the backs of hands. Use supplied lotions that are compatible with hand hygiene to minimize skin irritation that can occur with continuous hand hygiene practices. Wearing hand and wrist jewelry is not recommended. And continuing with hand hygiene practices, we will now talk about the T zone. Now we hear mostly about do not touch T zone. What is T zone? It is eyes, nose, and mouth. Should I not touch my eyes? Should I not touch my nose and mouth? Why? Microorganisms enter through the cells of mucous membrane via ACE2 receptors. It is all amazing what is ACE2 receptors to know. It is only a protein, an angiotensin converting enzyme 2 called as ACE2 receptor, which is a protein provides the entry point for the virus, especially of coronavirus, to hook into and infect wide range of human cells. This is being proved by many researchers during this pandemic how the virus get into and infect the human cells and how the human become the victim. ACE2, where is that ACE2 receptor cells present? They are present in the epithelium of the nose, mouth, and eyes. That's what we once again we repeatedly tell us, don't touch the T zone. Never put your fingers in your eyes, nose, or mouth. Is there any evidences that we always touch our nose and mouth? Yes, anecdotal evidence suggests that the face touching is primarily under two conditions, whether we do it unconsciously out of habit or consciously to some degree at least in response to an itch. Sometimes we do it, consciously we do it. Can we do control? Can we have control? Can we take any measures? It is all the habits control. There are so many ways, but the suggestion is train up a counteraction. When we want to scratch, do a counteraction. Example, directing the action. Put up a behavioral barrier. For example, when in meeting, you sit up with hands clasped together so that you don't touch your face, mouth, nose, or. And third one is put up physical barriers like wearing something that you do not touch your face, that the key areas at all. Now during this pandemic season, we wear face shield which help us in preventing touching the nose, mouth, and the eyes, as well wearing goggles that help us not touching the eyes. And fourth one is you generate mindfulness. Whenever we do anything, we should just conscious about it. Before the action is completed, we should be conscious that I'm doing this, that mindfulness should be generated. I think when we control these habits, to some extent, we can prevent touching of eyes, nose, and mouth. Once again, we tell you all, don't touch your face. Why? To help. We should help ourselves in preventing infections. We have to keep our hands away from eyes, nose, mouth. Why? All those mucous membranes are the portal into the body for a virus like COVID-19. I think we have come to the end of the session. I think we have completed on hand hygiene, the care of T zone, why to take care of T zone. And thank you for participating. We should not forget about the 5 moments of hand hygiene, and we should take as a key point that we should avoid touching eyes, nose, mouth, the T zones. Thank you all.
So that was a wonderful information, Delphin ma'am. So it's really shocking that hand hygiene compliance among healthcare workers was only 40%. So to conclude, avoid touch, and apart from that, that's very interesting to know about ACE2 inhibitors in the epithelial cells which receives the coronavirus. So that was really interesting information for us. And to conclude, avoid touching eyes, nose, and mouth. And it is a very detailed explanation about the importance of hand hygiene in healthcare setting. Thank you, madam. Now over to Ms. Muthulakshmi. She is an infection control nurse at Kumaran Medical Center who is going to present on correct usage of personal protective equipment. So it's mostly going to be like donning and doffing of PPE. So welcome, Ms. Muthulakshmi.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Muthulakshmi, Infection Controllers in Kumaran Medical Center, and I would like to thank Polymed Company for giving this opportunity for participate in this panel discussion. And I was supposed to share the thoughts of proper way of using PPE in this pandemic situation. Now we can share our slides. Shall we start? First, we are going to see the components of PPE. We are using the PPEs like face shield, gloves, goggles, gown, and head cover, face mask, and respirator, and shoe cover. Next, we are one by one. We are going to see what is the purpose of using PPE and donning docking procedures of the PPE. Personal protective equipment is commonly referred to as the PPE. The equipment going to.
Muthulakshmi, sorry for the interruption. Couldn't share the
Yes.
PPT?
Yes, I shared now.
Just open your PPT, Ms. Muthulakshmi.
PPT not opened.
Open the slide and go to slide share.
Is visible, ma'am?
No, not yet, not yet.
Ma'am, what you have to do, you have to first stop sharing the current screen.
Okay.
And then open the slide. Open the slide. Open the PowerPoint presentation. And then start sharing the screen and select the PowerPoint presentation, ma'am.
Is visible, sir?
No.
Now it is visible.
You have to start sharing it again, ma'am.
One. One second. Sir?
Ma'am, you click the share screen button. Press share screen button.
Yeah,
Visible, ma'am, see?
it is visible. You could.
It's visible. It's visible.
Okay, shall we start now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, please.
First, we are going to see the components of PPE like face shield, gloves, goggles, gown, and head cover, face mask, and respirator, and shoe cover. And PPE is personal protective equipment, is commonly referred to as PPE, and is equipment worn to minimize the exposure of to variety of hazards. Examples of PPE, like gloves and gown, goggles, etc. First, types of PPE used in healthcare settings. Gloves. It is used to protect the healthcare providers' hands. Gowns, aprons to protect the skin. Mask and respirator to protect the mucus, to protect the airborne infectious agents. And goggles used to protect your eyes. Face shields are using to protect our face, mouth, and eyes. Next, sequence for putting on personal protective equipment. First, we have to wear the gown. In the PPEs, first we are wear the gown. The fully cover is from neck to knees. Next is mask and respirator. Next, goggles and face shield. Next, gloves. How to don a gown means first select your appropriate type and size. Opening the back and secure in neck and waist first. If the gown is too small means two gowns can be wear. First gown ties in front, second gown to be ties in back. How to don a mask means place over the nose and chin, fit flexible nose piece over the nose bridge, secure on head with the ties or elastic. If the mask is ties or elastic, adjust to fit. First we have to tie the, while donning the mask, first we have to tie the mask in head. Next we have to tie the mask in neck. How to don a particular respirator. Respirator means select a fit tested respirator. Place over nose, mouth and chin. Fit flexible nose piece over the nose bridge. Secure on head with the elastic. Adjust to fit. While we wearing the respirator means we have to check the fit check test. If any time you are wearing the N95 mask means we have to check the fit check test. How to check the fit check test means first inhale, respirator should collapse, and exhale means check for leakage around the face mask. So while doing fit check test, please inhale and exhale to check that your mask is fit for you and if there is any leakage or not. How to don a eye and face protection means position the goggles over the eyes and secure to the head using the earpieces or headband. For positions of face shield means over the face. Or face shield is to protect your eyes, nose and chin. How to don your gloves? While donning the PPE, first we have to do the hand hygiene, next gown, mask, eye protection, last is gloves. Gloves, select a correct type and size, insert hands into gloves, extend gloves over isolation gown. Next, how to remove the PPE. Donning is over. Next is the doffing. How to doff our PPE? It is take off. How to take off means first to remove the gloves. Gloves means first out. If you have here two gloves means first you remove the outside of the gloves are contaminated. If your hands get contaminated during the glove removal, immediately wash your hands or use an alcohol-based hand rub. Using a gloved hand, grasp the palm area of the other glove and peel the first glove. Hold removed glove will be gloved hand. Next, goggles or face shield means while doffing, first gloves to be removed, then goggles to be removed. While removing gloves, it should be discarded in red color bin. Next, goggles to be removed. Next, gown should be discarded in yellow color. Biomedical waste management. Next is mask. Mask or respirator. If you remove both of them, it will be discarded in the yellow biomedical waste bin. Next, after doffing all the PPEs, wash your hands immediately with the soap and water. When removing your gloves, do not perform hand rub. Alcohol-based hand rub do not perform. Compulsory, you have to wash your hands with soap and water. How to remove gloves is the step. First, pinch the hold outside of the glove near the wrist area. Then peel downwards away from the wrist, turning the glove inside out. Then hold it. Then continue pull the glove down and peel downwards away from the wrist, turning the glove inside out. Then discard it in red color, yellow color bin. While discarding PPEs, proper biomedical waste management should be followed. While removing goggles, grasp the ear elastic bin and remove it and discard it in red color. Removing isolation gown is first unfasten tie in the neck side, next peel the neck and chest, then discard the gown in red color bin. Removing a mask, untie the while wearing the mask, we have to tie the first head side. While removing the mask, first we have to untie the bottom side. Bottom tie should be first removed. Next to be the headset and discarded to yellow color bin. Removing a particulate respirator, lift the bottom elastic over your head first, then lift up the top elastic and discard it in yellow color. After this, all doffing our PPE, perform the hand hygiene immediately. If the hands are visibly soiled or not, but you have to wash your hands with all soap and water. First, we have to finalize the donning of PPE, doffing of PPE. First, donning PPE means first you have to hand hygiene first. Next, wear gown and respiratory protection for face mask or N95 mask. Next, eye protections, goggles or face shield. Last is gloves. While doffing your PPE, first you have to remove your gloves, then gown, last gloves, then face shield, next gown, and hand hygiene is the final. Thank you, Mercy.
So thank you so much for a very short and speedy information, Ms. Muthulakshmi. So to conclude, appropriate usage of PPEs will have a pivotal role in prevention of infection, and it must be encouraged to practice appropriately among all the healthcare workers, irrespective of nurses or doctors, and almost all the healthcare workers, to be followed without any discriminations, I think. So thank you so much. And now over to Ms. Praveena. She's an infection control nurse at JKNM Hospital and who is going to present a very interesting topic on ABCs of antibiotics. Please.
Thank you, ma'am. Hello everyone, good evening. I'm Praveenalu Jagannathan. I work as an infection control nurse in G. Kuppasamy Naidu Hospital. I thank Polymed for giving me such a wonderful opportunity to present myself about the ABCs of antibiotics. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yeah. Yeah, we do.
Okay, ma'am. So, before we go to the topic, let's recall some information about antibiotics and bacteria. Antibiotics were considered as the wonder drugs of the 20th. Antibiotics were considered as the wonder drugs of the 20th century. So, let's know about what are antibiotics. Antibiotics are medications which acts in bacteria in a number of ways by killing or preventing them from spreading infections. The story starts in 1920s with the discovery of penicillin by Alexander Fleming. Initially, penicillin was not distributed to the general public until 1940. After 1940, the drug was sold over the counter and it was overused by all the public. In 1 year, the first person developed penicillin resistance, and by 1950s, this resistance was widespread. We have seen the same trend with other antibiotics. In fact, antibiotics are the only drug where every time each one of us uses it becomes less and less effective, not only in us, but in those who have not been exposed also. The patients we see today represent just among the 7 million people who die per year worldwide due to antibiotic-resistant infections. Now, in order to understand the nature of this problem, we have to understand what is bacteria. Bacteria are everywhere, everything you look at, everything you touch, everything you put in your mouth, and everything you sit on. And it's covered with millions and millions of bacteria. The world is covered with millions and millions of bacteria. They are so small that you can't see them without a microscope. But they are there and they are literally everywhere in the world. You can find them at the bottom of the deepest part of the ocean, in the top of the tallest mountain, in the polar ice caps. They can live in places where there is no sunlight, with or without oxygen and food. They can grow in radioactive waste, in toxic chemicals, and even in boiling hot springs. When bacteria finds a place to live in, they will multiply very fastly in very high numbers. For example, if you put an E. coli mother in a maternity ward, within 8 hours, she will have given birth to more than 16 million baby E. colis. One of the places that bacteria like to call home is our human body. In fact, there are more bacterial cells in us than there are human cells. So we can argue that each one of us is actually more bacteria than we are humans. Some bacteria in human body are drug resistant. They can survive treatments and reproduce themselves, spreading their key genes more widely. So the antibiotics, due to their major weakness, become ever less effective. These resistant bacteria then have space to multiply and can even transfer their drug resistance to other bacteria. To understand better, let's remember the film of our superstar Rajinikanth Endiran. Hope you wouldn't have forgotten the struggle that Vasigaran he will take to destroy Chitty, the bad villain robot. Let's assume Vasigaran as an antibiotic and the multiplying chitties as superbugs or the multi-drug resistant organisms. Now, I need your help in this fight. We are currently in the missile of a global crisis where antibiotics are losing their effectiveness against infectious diseases. Looking into the future, if we continue on the current strategy, 10 million people per year will die due to resistant infection by the year 2050. That's one person dying every 3 seconds. We'll remember Mr. Alexander Fleming, who predicted this very situation by understanding the nature of bacteria. He stated in the Global Prize-winning speech that the time may come when penicillin can be bought by anyone in the shops. Then there is the danger that the ignorant man may easily underdose himself and by exposing his microbes to non-lethal quantities of the drug, make them resistant. So in the future, a simple cut of your finger could leave you fighting for your life. Luck will play a major role in your future than your doctor could. The most basic operations, that is getting an appendix removed or a hip replacement, could become deadly. Cancer treatments and organ transplants could kill the humans. Childbirth can once again become a deadly moment in women's life. The future will be without antibiotics. So, it's time for change. So, I'm going to harm you with 3 action items that you can start implementing today. Today, let us make an impact and reduce the deadly effects of antibiotics. Now, let's get into the 3 action items. The first is to ask, do I really need to take these antibiotics or are there any alternatives? The second B stands for bacteria. We should know what infection we have. Most of the antibiotics are used inappropriately. I mean that they are being used to treat viruses. Antibiotics only work against bacteria and have no effect against virus. So the next time you're coughing, sneezing, or have a cold, do not insist on a prescription for an antibiotic. Instead, drink plenty of fluids and plenty of rest. The next time when your ear hurts, do not insist on a prescription for an antibiotic without knowing what caused it. If your doctor gives you a prescription for an antibiotic, understand why that antibiotic is being given to you. Do not be timid about asking if you feel you really need them. Educate yourselves. And the most important, to tell everyone around you. Educate yourselves by going to websites such as CDC and WHO, where you can learn more and more about appropriate antibiotic usage. You can educate others by spreading the word from what you learn through these websites. You can educate your friends, family members, co-workers, and everyone else around you. And the last action is to use antibiotics sparingly. Conserve it just like water or halter global warming. Complete the antibiotics because for 30 years our scientists haven't invented an antibiotic yet. So let's think. Are we going to conserve antibiotics, that is so-called fussigerants, or are we going to produce more chitty NDRs? It's up to you. I will leave to you this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Praveena. Thank you for reminders, Indiran. And it's very interesting to know that bacteria are everywhere. Quite interesting. And to conclude, so you were telling that A is asked for whether antibiotics are necessary, B for bacteria, that is antibiotics only bacteria, not virus, and C complete the course even if you are well, and also to conserve the antibiotics for future usage. So thank you very much, Ms. Praveena.
Thank you.
And Mercy, let's go with the question answer session. We have got 2 questions. The first one to Delphine ma'am, since she's not present here, I would like to ask Mercy that why eyes, nose, mouth are called T-zones.
Yeah, I can answer for this one because why we are saying that eyes, nose, and mouth are is a T zone means it's the eyes are in this vertical and nose and mouth are this vertical. That's why we are saying the T zone for easy remembrance. For easy remembrance, they are saying the T zone.
Okay. And the next question is to Ms. Mutlakshmi. Any mnemonics to remember donning and doffing of PPE?
So you need to unmute. You need to unmute.
Hello, can you
Yeah.
hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. First done PPE sequence is gown, next is mask, next goggles, and final is gloves. While doffing the PPE, the sequence is in alphabetical order. First is gloves, most contaminated, first gloves, next goggles, next gown, and final is mask or respirator. This is the sequences.
Any mnemonics like ABC, something like?
Alphabetical order. While doffing the PPE means alphabetical order. The gloves, goggles, and gown and mask. That is the alphabetical order.
Fine. Question to Ms. Praveena. What is actually antibiotic resistance means? Can you just close the slide, please?
Yes, ma'am. Antibiotic resistance means it is the ability of the bacteria and other microorganisms to resist the effects of an antibiotic to which they are once known very sensitive. And that is called as antibiotic resistance when the microorganism gets resistant to the medicines.
That how does the superbug develops?
Superbugs means they are the strains of bacteria, virus, parasites, and even fungi. And when the people when the people take them inappropriately without any doctor's prescription, or if they overdose or underdose themselves, there are more chances of humans getting resistant to antibiotics, and in such situation, the superbugs are formed. And
say that
there are a few examples. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, you mean to say that under dosage of medicine can create a situation for other bacteria to get in, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am. Yeah.
Uh, Fine. And what are all the roles of the stakeholders do you think, Praveena, for in a healthcare sector in implementing antimicrobial stewardship? Do you think it is only a job of a doctor or only a job of a nurse to just handle it? Or how you could say that what are the responsibilities of the stakeholders in healthcare sector?
Okay, ma'am. Yeah, ma'am. It's not the duty of only the doctors or the nurses. It's not only the duties of the doctors or nurses, but also every stakeholder should take some action in order to implement antibiotic stewardship. And it's our duty to create awareness among everyone with our colleagues, in our family, and also whomever we meet. We need to create awareness among them, and in hospitals we need to implement, and we have to follow proper infection control practices. So that will be the action taken by the stakeholders in order to implement proper antibiotic stewardship. Yeah, that's what I think, ma'am.
In addition to that, I think I also would like to add on to the points that we
Okay.
should not, especially a mother or a parent of a children, they should not keep on insisting on doctors to write a prescription
Yeah.
on
Yes.
write antibiotics. They are
Yeah.
fixing in their mind that by giving antibiotics they will get cured, right?
Yes,
So I
that's
think
it.
that also to be educated, and I think the Ministry of Health also will have some certain roles in strictly or stringently implementing antimicrobial stewardship, right? So to restrict,
Yes,
availability should
ma'am.
be restricted, and they should strictly follow the stewardship program, irrespective of a government or a private sector as a whole, I think. Yeah. So thank you, Praveena. Over to
Yes,
Muthulakshmi.
ma'am.
Muthulakshmi, can you
Thank you,
just
ma'am.
tell me the
Yes, ma'am.
universal directional method of donning and doffing area? Is there any point, something like that? You have to have a uniflow direction.
In front of, not like that, ma'am.
I okay. I think it would be better to have an universal directional flow, that is a point of entry. You should be a dawn, and you have to go to the care setting, and to another portion you have to go for doffing, and you have to go off. I hope that would be better way to prevent cross contamination. Do you agree?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Same like how do we, the CSST and theater processes, like the
In our
end. Yes.
COVID working areas also, first entry point is donning, and while exit the room, we have to doff our PPEs and come to out.
So it should be strictly followed or anything else? Just because of a coronavirus, we are so fear
Yes,
and we do. Otherwise,
we
also,
are
I think
strictly
in hospital,
following, ma'am.
we are following.
Schools are very awareness, ma'am.
Okay. One more is that is non-medical gloves can be used, like hand care, some other non-medical gloves they can be used as a cost conservation methodology, which is widely practiced in hospital settings. So do you agree for that?
No, ma'am, it is not acceptable. While we are using the sterile gloves, it is differentiated from the unsterile gloves. For sterile procedure, we have to only use for sterile gloves only. It is a single use.
It is not advisable.
Yes, it is not an advisable.
And one more thing is that using of N95 respirators, right?
Yes. Yes.
Uh, just to prevent the cross infection, is that N95 respirators is for patient, the prevention of cross infection from patient to healthcare workers or from healthcare workers to patient?
For both of them, we have to use for N95 mask, ma'am. For airborne diseases, we must use N95 mask. Face mask is not effective that much, so we have to use the N95 mask.
Is
For
it to
patient,
protect from patient to healthcare workers or vice versa?
wise patient to healthcare worker as well as healthcare too. Nowadays, healthcare workers also affected from so many COVID conditions, ma'am. So from healthcare workers to patients also prevent infection, we have to wear the N95 mask.
Okay. And is N95 respirator shall be reused?
CDC guideline is can be reused for 5 times, 5 days, 5 days.
So shall we use it 5 consecutive days or how?
If you have 5 marks, mean 5 masks means first Monday we have to take 1 mask and we have to write the mask. We kept the mask in one cover. We have to write the day one, first mask day one. That how the second mask it will be taken and the write second mask day one. That way we have to maintain the sequence for every mask can be used for 5 times per 5 days.
So we should cautiously use it every alternative days.
Every alternative days,
How
5
are we going to disinfect that?
through the sunlight, ma'am.
Only through the sunlight.
Only through the sunlight.
We can't do washing.
No, ma'am. It's not acceptable, ma'am.
Okay, fine. So thank you so much, Muthulakshmi.
Thank you.
And 2 more questions, Mercy, on behalf of Delphine Madam. Why alcohol-based hand rubs are not an alternative for soap and water hand wash? Why you are insisting every time to go and wash our hands, rather we have a hand rub easy?
Yes. Yeah, right. So whenever we are doing alcohol hand rub, no, that time that bacterial will happen, but the remaining will be lies on only in hands. Whenever we are doing hand washing, then only it will remove from our hands. And then remember, in all time we cannot apply hand rub. Whenever our hands are clean, that time visibly clean, that time only we can go for hand rub. Whenever our hands are visibly dirty, that time we should go for hand washing. For example, I can give one example like after removal of powdered gloves. Definitely, it is visibly dirty, right?
Okay.
Even a powder glove, any materials is on our hands. Definitely, we should go for hand washing. Don't apply hand rub because even though if we apply, we can think it is a clean thing only, right? So even though if applied a hand rub on the powdered gloves and all, so definitely that powdered glove powder and that hand rub will do some chemical reaction. We will have some reaction in our hands. That's why a lot of nurses they will say after using this hand rub, you are saying you are using to use hand rubs. After using hand rubs, I'm having some allergic reaction in my hands. Like us, they'll tell. So due to these things only. So should remember whenever our hands are visibly clean, we should go for hand rub. Whenever visibly dirty, we need to go for hand washing.
One more microbiological point of view, I just would like to add on one point which I have learned from some experts, like like they are saying when the water molecule and the soap molecule is getting involved, the virus is the portion or
Yes, it will
protein
get
portion of the
inactivated.
virus is getting deactivated.
Yes,
So which will not happen in hand rub solutions. For example,
yes,
Clostridium difficile, generally for
right,
gastroenterology unit where you have,
right.
so as well as for coronavirus as well. That is the reason why
Yes,
they will
ma'am.
keep on insisting on do hand washing rather than hand rub, I think. So
Yes, ma'am. As
sometimes,
you said, yes,
yeah.
as you said, sporicidal, spore-forming bacteria, it will not kill by hand rubs. So definitely for that, for Clostridium difficile and all, we need to go for hand washing, not
Washing.
hand rubs. Definitely, ma'am.
Okay. And the last one is how hand washing helps to break the chain of infection. Where does it gets
Definitely,
interfere in the chain of infection?
yes, ma'am. And in hand washing, so everywhere, every time if we follow the hand washing, so definitely the postal of exit we can avoid and postal of entry also we can avoid, and it's the main thing. So we can because due to the transmission also the microorganism will transmit through the contact, through the touch and all. So we can break there. We can break there. So in every point of contact. So for example, even every care we need to touch the patient. So every even for nowadays our culture also changed like handshaking, right? So everywhere we are contacting through our hands. So every work we are touching through our hands, right? So that time if we followed proper hand hygiene, definitely we can break the chain.
Okay. So you mean to say that portal of entry to the transmission can, that kind of a chain can be break off through by using a hand wash.
Yes,
So thank you very much, Mercy. So that's all, and it's
yes,
really a very good interactive session. And I hope it will be very much useful for the audience. And all. Yeah.
yes, ma'am.
So
And then one
thank
more
you.
question is lying in Q&A box how to do root cause analysis to CLABSI. Yes, but actually we didn't cover any infection prevention bundle here. But as an ICN, I worked as an ICN. That's why I can give I can give contribution in this point. So for CLABSI analysis, CLABSI identifying analysis, it's based on a procedure, based on patient care. So based on what are the materials we have used. So everything we need to take each and every point. Type of dressing, what type of dressing, whether we have followed proper hand hygiene whenever we are accessing the site, and then whether we have followed proper scrub the hub technique, everything we need to analyze this. For the exact root cause analysis, we need to follow some of the tools that will be better. So we can ask, but we need to, yes.
Do we have any tool from CDC guidelines or something like that?
Right. So we have some of the tools we are following in hospitals. So I'll tell the name of the tools. Pareto charts we are following, and then 5 whys. So why? If we take one problem, why this problem? Why this problem? So we can take that why ways, and then fishbone diagram we can take, and then scatter diagram, and then failure mode and effect mode tool we can use. So we have a lot of tools. So what are the tools is okay for us? We can choose the tools and we can do the analysis.
Is the commonest methodology what we use it for to identify the root cause.
Fishbone diagram. Yes, fishbone diagram. Yes.
So thank you very much, Mercy, for organizing the session. It's really wonderful.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you very much for everyone. The session was really informative. I'm sure that everyone would have benefited from this. And then finally, I need to thank everyone. I need to thank Kavita ma'am, Delphine ma'am, Muthulakshmi sister, Pravina sister for being a speaker. Thank you very much, ma'am and sisters. And I would like to thank Dr. Arijit, Head Medical Affair, and our Mr. Ravi Kumar sir, Zonal Business Manager, Paul Medicure. And I want to thank Mr. Rex Prather, Senior Clinical Specialist, and Ms. Pooja from PMT, our PMT person. And I would like to thank our entire clinical team and sales team and PMT team for wonderful support. And finally, definitely I need to thank all the participants and thank you all once again.